Hey guys, we're back in Pisgah. This is part of the Linville Gorge. Again, we're not actually in the gorge. We're on top again because there's no real way to go down into it without backpacking. But we are here in the Buick Regal Tour X car camping, and it made me think about some of the people who want to go camping. I know there are a lot of people out there who want to go and just kind of think they don't have enough gear or all the right stuff to go camping. But the truth is, you don't need a whole bunch of stuff. You only need a few things, and you probably already have several of them. So here are the 9 things you need to go car camping. So the first thing you need, and one thing I don't go into the woods without, is a first aid kit. And I've got one right here. This is just a basic one from Amazon, but it's got about 120 pieces in it. And this is what you need when you go car camping or backpacking or really anything. You need a first aid kit. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but you need things like bandages, gauze, antiseptic, things to clean a wound and treat a wound if something happens. Because if something does happen and you're in the woods, you don't want to be caught without a way to treat the wound. It's also good to know how to do that, which I'm probably not the most knowledgeable person out there about first aid, but having this makes a big difference. Don't go without it. The second thing you need is something everyone knows you need when you go camping, and that is a sleeping bag. These two are rated for 15 and 20 degrees. It's not quite that cold out here, so I actually was really toasty last night. If you don't have a sleeping bag, you can also use blankets, especially if you're going camping in like the summer, spring, and it's not super cold. You can get by without a blanket or sleeping bag or anything, but I would suggest at least a blanket, even if it's a little warmer weather. Things can go kind of crazy and weather changes a lot, especially up in the mountains, and you don't know what to expect. So having something like a sleeping bag on hand or blanket or anything is good to have, but if it's going to be cooler weather, you definitely want to have something that's rated for the temperatures you're going to be sleeping in. But yes, sleeping bag or blanket, essential. In addition to that, you also want to be able to sleep in comfort, so a sleeping pad of sorts. A lot of people will take air mattresses. If you were car camping, as in sleeping inside the car, an air mattress may not fit. For instance, in this thing last night, if we had had an air mattress in here, we would have had about maybe 4 inches between our noses and the top of the car. So you don't want that. So these thin, self-inflating sleeping pads that we have are really quite nice. They're great for backpacking, but they're also good for car camping. Number 4 is kind of a broad category, and that's cleaning supplies. That includes paper towels, toilet paper, which is an essential, trust me. You definitely don't want to be wiping with leaves, but toilet paper is a great thing to have. Baby wipes or wet wipes, also essential, especially if you're car camping and kind of not going full hardcore bushcraft or backpacker. If you're going car camping, wet wipes go a very long way to keeping things sanitary, but also making you feel a little less gross. And then also, the most important thing, the thing that makes me so mad, bring a trash bag. Pick up after yourself. If you bring something into the woods, take it out with you. Or at least, if you're using toilet paper and you're leaving that behind, dig a hole, get biodegradable stuff like 1-ply, and bury it. But anything else, anything, especially recyclables, or any other trash that you can't burn, take with you. Put it in a trash bag and take it home or to the nearest dump site. In addition to that, a lot of campgrounds, if you're not camping off-grid kind of like this, which is a national forest road, if you are camping in a campground, a lot of them have dump sites at the exit. So as you're leaving, you can just take your trash and dump it. But here we see a lot of trash bags and a lot of cans and bottles and everything just scattered everywhere, and it's extremely frustrating. It makes the trip worse for the next person. So be mindful, take your trash with you. So something I didn't put on this list, but which is very obvious, is food and water. But what I want to mention is that you don't necessarily need to bring anything to cook with. You don't have to cook when you're in the woods. You can bring things like granola bars or beef jerky and just snack on things. You can bring tuna in a can. You can bring a lot of foods that don't need to be refrigerated or kept cool or cooked. So you don't have to actually worry about cooking when you're out here. I typically either bring a cooler and cook, or I'll bring backpacker meals, and for that you only need to heat up water. So you don't really need much to cook with. You can heat up water over a fire if you need. So you don't necessarily need to overthink the whole food thing. Keep it simple, especially if it's your first time out. Just bring things that you can snack on while you're out, especially if it's a short trip. But if you do something like that, the one thing you don't want to forget is an eating utensil. So that is the next item on the list, something to eat with. So there are a lot of different utensil options when you're going camping. You can use a disposable utensil set from the grocery store, a big old box of them for like a couple bucks, and you can just throw them away when you're done. But you can go a little further and get something reusable, like the plastic sports from Light My Fire. They're a couple bucks for a multi-pack. I think you can get 3 or 4 for $4 or $5. They're not very expensive at all. But if you're going to be mindful of your environment and you're not going to use something reusable, you can at least get biodegradable utensils. They're made from plant fiber and there's no waste left behind. So when you're camping, you don't necessarily have to build a fire. Maybe it's 90 degrees outside in a North Carolina summer and you don't want extra heat from a fire. But the one thing you don't want is to be left out in the woods without a way to see at night, because it gets very, very dark out here when there's no light pollution. So you're definitely going to want to bring along a light source. You can bring a flashlight or a headlamp. One of my favorite things to bring along is the Lucy, which is a solar-powered lantern that's inflatable. So it packs down very, very small. You don't have to worry about charging it up. Just leave it out in the sun during the day, and then you've got a light source all night long. These things are great. And I also tend to bring along a rechargeable headlamp. It plugs into my phone charger. I can charge it up in maybe 30-45 minutes, and I've got a light source that's powerful enough to see pretty far into the night. But if you just bring one thing, this is good enough to walk around with. It puts off enough light for multiple people to use. So it's quite nice. And this is a Lucy solar-powered lantern. But yeah, you don't want to be out here in the dark, dark woods without a light source. The next thing on the list is a knife, or at least something to cut stuff with. You don't necessarily have to bring a big, giant, honking survival knife, but you do need something, even if it's a small knife to cut things with. It's great in a survival situation, but there are so many things that you'll need to cut when you're out here. Opening packages, it seems ridiculous, but you'll need that quite often. Cutting bark from a branch, making fire starters or like tinder. A knife is a tool I do not leave home without, but especially when I'm going camping. One tool in particular that's really great is called the Hori Hori. It's a Japanese gardening tool, but it's also very, very helpful when you're camping, because it has a saw blade on one side and knife blade on the other, a bottle opener, and it's also used for digging. It's actually the onomatopoeia for the digging sound. And I think that's really cool, but it's very, very helpful. There's one from Bare Bones, which is very popular on Amazon and other places like Huckberry. I don't actually own one, but I do want to buy one. I've been looking at them and it's been in my wish list on Amazon for probably about a year now. And while you may not always want a fire when you're camping, there may be certain situations where you need a fire. So you don't want to be caught without a way to build a fire or make a fire, even in wet conditions like it is right now. For that reason, the 8th thing on this list is a fire starter. I've detailed how to make several different fire starters, but if I were to recommend one type of fire starter to bring with you, it would be the ones I made most recently, which are called the Uber matches. They're matches wrapped in cotton, dipped in wax, and you run them along a strike pad and you've got a 10-minute fire starter, or 6 to 8 minute fire starter. Great to use. They're waterproof and just tiny. You can pack them away and bring them along just in case. And the last thing on the list, and I hate that it has to be said, but bring appropriate clothing. It was supposed to be about 60 highs while we were out here this weekend, and the lows were supposed to be in the upper 40s. Last night it hit probably about 39. It wasn't super cold, but it can get uncomfortable if you don't have the proper clothing. If you overdress for the summer, it's not really a problem. You can just shed layers all you need to. But if you're out and it might get cold where you're going, being stuck without proper clothing can be absolutely miserable. So I always tend to bring more than one coat. I bring like a mid layer, I'll bring a heavy coat, and I'll also bring a waterproof layer, like a shell, so I can kind of mix and match if it gets a little colder. And I also tend to bring extra jackets just in case other people are with me and they get cold. I don't get cold nearly as often or as easily as a lot of other people I know. It was 39 degrees last night and I slept outside my sleeping bag, but it's nice to have an extra jacket for other people, and also in case it does get just insanely cold, which has happened plenty of times. So that wraps up the list. Of course, this doesn't cover everything. It really depends on where you're going camping, what time of year. There are places where you go camping, you cannot go without bear spray, or it's strongly inadvisable to go without bear spray. And there are places where you can go camping without a bear canister. Pisgah is actually one of those places. I've got a bear canister with me. You need to know the regulations and the laws wherever you are. And that will ultimately dictate what you need. But I think to get you started for most cases in car camping, just quick, dirty camping trips with your family or whatever, all you need are these 9 essential items. You can go obviously more luxurious, bring chairs along, stools, but you can also repurpose things. Like I have a toolbox over here that I brought with all my gear in it. You can use that to sit on. There are rocks and stumps and all kinds of other things to sit on. Tailgate of your truck, the back of the car. So you can obviously use things for other purposes. And that's, I think, one of the best things about getting out into the woods is just kind of realizing what you can do with what you've got. It's a lot more than you'd expect. You can get by with a lot less than you need, but you can also use the things you have for more than you would expect, I think, in any other circumstance. But anyway, these are the 9 things that you need to go car camping. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with anybody you think wants to go camping and keeps giving you reasons for why they aren't going, because they're just making excuses. That's one of REI's most recent marketing campaigns, is "What's your butt?" There shouldn't be. You should just go. And I think one of the hardest things for people is to get past the initial crux, all the things and the gear and everything they need. There's a lot of pretension in the outdoor industry, and there's a lot of people who will tell you you need this tent or this sleeping bag. Just get the stuff and go. Don't think about it too much. And when you go, if it's not quite your comfort level, replace something with something a little better, and just test the waters and play things by ear. And of course, be safe, but don't get caught up too much in the details. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more stuff like this. If you like this style of video, this roundup style, let me know in the comments below. And of course, find us around the web. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mod Outdoor. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CasperTech. And until next time, live outdoors a little.
When I was young, I thought